So this is One India News. It has 2.31 million subscribers. I've never even heard of this channel before. I logistically found it yesterday right before I was about to go to sleep. And I saw the title. And as you can see, let me move up real quick. You can see at the bottom right there, it says Gates, Epstein were planning. And then economist expose of ending poverty in 2020 leaves the world stunned. So I'm quite curious on both those topics, on what was being said in 2020 about ending poverty. And you have to comprehend, if we didn't go to war, we could end poverty tomorrow for everyone in the world if we didn't have wars. Like if they just stopped going to war for uselessness and nonsense, it's called they have to go to war and people have to die because you're in a death cult. It's a false dualistic mentality that is a prison. Anyways, so I wanted to see what this was about because the title intrigued me. And so here one goes.
We know that people like Jeffrey Epstein, is now public record, were involved as early as 2017 in setting up the scheme of this great pandemic for some investors to make a fortune, such as Bill Gates. Epstein and Bill Gates discussed, matter of public record, of how to get rid of the poor people.
Right. You comprehend the famous line, I might pop it up right here real quick, where he says, if we do a really good job, we can depopulate the planet by 10% or something like that. I don't know. I might throw it up right here.
First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
And of course, it was used at the same time to push digital ID. Realize it's not just financial activities, it's about all activities, and the programmability is a key feature. The Bank of England asked the government, the politicians in the UK, to give them the power to have programmable digital currency, and that is a control tool. The pilot...
Just like language. Language is the ultimate control tool. You were trained how to speak. Everyone needs to recognize you were trained how to speak. You were told what words mean. You were told how they were supposed to be used. You were told all of these things from liars because they don't know they are lying. Comprehend, most of the population does not know that it is constantly lying to themselves. Every word they spit out their mouth is a lie to themselves. They don't get that it's a lie because they were trained to think that what they were saying is real.
CBDC projects that are ongoing, for example, this one in Brazil in particular, experts have already found out, yes, it has all those features. You can freeze transactions, you can take people's money away, you can intervene in those ways. Now, the central planners claim we will not abuse the limitless power that digital ID and CBDCs will give us.
Don't ever get a digital ID, bro. I mean, most likely everyone's gonna have to get a digital ID. Like, there's probably no stopping it, but you should at least attempt to fight getting a digital ID for as long as possible. The longer, the better, because the longer you fight on that sort of thing, the better chance everyone has of figuring out about language manipulation history.
Okay. Well, should we trust them? Well, I can be brief here. I think all of you know examples of how this sort of power has already been abused.
You see that? You see that? You see what he just did right there with his hand? I'm not going to show you. You can rewind real quick and look for yourself. But you see, everyone is brainwashed to do these hand symbols, regardless if you're in a cult, secret elite group or not. Comprehend, the elites have trained your brains to do certain things with your body subconsciously. That includes speaking and doing stuff with your hands. He just did a symbolism. It's called the all-seeing eye or 666. Comprehend, both sides of duality are wrong and insane and control you. So I'm talking about God and devil. So when I say 666, don't think I'm like some religious person. I'm not. I think all religions are designed to control you and manipulate you through language manipulation, just like the government controls and manipulates you through language manipulation.
Thinking of Justin Trudeau's ending the peaceful demonstrations by truckers in Ottawa. Their bank accounts were frozen. Their ability to buy food is how they got them. Too few used cash and digital currency. Well, they didn't have CBDCs, so they had to pass laws to do it. And that will be very easy once you have CBDCs. The police froze 206 financial products, including bank and corporate accounts, disclosed 56 entities associated with vehicles, facial.
As you can see, this is last month, bro. Like, this is not that long ago. This is like 2 weeks ago. A little over 2 weeks ago, this guy was saying this.
Recognition. Even 253 Bitcoin addresses were identified, and PayPal was also shut down. So
what?
That's how they
PayPal
can do
was
it.
shut down.
Now, interestingly, no such financial controls had been used previously to stop criminals. But of course, peaceful.
You would think that would be the idea.
That's when it seems the central planners get.
It's kind of difficult when the criminals right now are currently the ones making the laws that everybody has to follow. And so that's why everything is so fucked up, because most people do not comprehend that the politicians and the people that they vote for and think are good people are the criminals making the laws that are enslaving you.
Pretty creative about how to stop people. And of course, we all know what happened in 2020. Digital ID suddenly were a topic. Vaccination passports as a backdoor to introduce digital ID.
I don't even have a regular passport.
Programmability, you can close access if you don't do.
I don't think I'd have to worry about that now, because I am going to get a passport, because I'm trying to get away from the DMV and like the whole, our Constitution states I have the free right to travel. I'm not conducting commerce in an automobile. Most people do not comprehend language, that automobile and vehicle are not the same thing. A vehicle is for producing commerce. So like the people that drive the UPS trucks that I load, they need a license to operate that vehicle because it's conducting commerce, right? Whereas the automobile that they drove to get to their job is not a vehicle or for commerce. These things have been twisted, and that's why you have to pay all the money you pay to the DMV and insurance and da-da-da-da, because your liberty and rights have already been stripped away. You have to comprehend, I was born into this.
X, Y, Z, and can be anything the government central planners decide. And now we have the EU commissars already abusing their dictatorial powers that they've had for a while, but now they're showing these powers by declaring very polite, considered critics like Jacques Beau, a Swiss former sort of army officer.
Well, I don't know. The Swiss country is kind of, that's probably like the worst place on earth. Like, all the criminals do all their business in Switzerland because Switzerland is supposed to be neutral. There is no neutral in duality. They need you to deny neutral. And so therefore, Switzerland is not neutral. It just is looked at as neutral.
In his, just giving his opinions, he's an outlaw now. He's been sanctioned. He can't buy food. He can't leave the country, Belgium, in order to travel back to Switzerland. It is quite extraordinary. Now, on the monetary front, the CBDC is
I don't know
the
nothing
biggest
about what he was just talking about right
in
now.
our monetary system in more than 300 years. But the digital aspect is not new. What is happening, therefore, is the centralization, but it's a particular type of centralization. The central banks are ripping up the old agreement between the banks and the central banks, which was that the central banks deal with banks and the banks deal with us. And overall, the banks haven't really abused that. They've never sold our data ever, our transactions data. They haven't. That's really why they've become the enemy, because that's supposed to be...
I don't know, bro. That's a stretch, bro. I don't know about that one, bro. You're trying to say that no bank has never, ever sold any information to anyone ever. That's a stretch, bro. Seems how, but I will say, to the case of the central banks deal with the banks deal with us, blah, 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 comprehend. The central banks are mostly ran by the Rothschilds. And if you look that up right now, the internet's going to tell you that that's been debunked and they don't really do that and blah, 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 blah. I'm not fucking around when I say that the internet is continuously being whitewashed of information so that way you are not aware. And the more it does that, the less ability for everything I've already researched, right? So I've done research for the last 15 years. The things I found out about 10 years ago, half the things I found out about 10 years ago, you can't even find on the internet anymore. Like logistically, you can search for it and the internet changed it. It got changed. I'll give you an example. If you find a book, a dictionary from, like, say, the late 1800s, you're going to find that if you look up the N word, the N word, the one that I'm not allowed to say apparently, right? If you look that word up in that dictionary from like the late 1800s, you're going to see that that word means foolish or ignorant being. That's anyone. It has nothing to do with race. That word actually never had anything to do with race. It got twisted, like I'm speaking about language manipulation history. The words have been twisted to be used against you without your knowledge. Now, think about this. That word that used to mean ignorant and foolish being for everyone, that doesn't mean what race you are, color, blah, blah, none of that. None of that mattered. If you were stupid, you were the N word. Now think about how that got twisted to cover every dark-skinned race practically.
A currency that they want to sell and trade, and banks have refused to do that. So the central banks are now stepping into the arena and want to compete against their regulated, the banks.
Comprehend that the central banks are led by elite people that are not elected, okay? You don't get to hear about these people. They're not elected anywhere. And they run these banks. You have to comprehend the Federal Reserve is not a part of the United States. It's a private entity that loans money to the government with interest. Comprehend, if you loan someone who cannot make their own money and put interest on that money that you loan them, and they cannot make their own money, meaning the only way they can pay back the interest is if you give them more money because you're the one who makes the money. So you see how that's a Ponzi scheme. It's a never-ending cycle where we're going to be continuously stuck in debt, and that's why the debt is almost $40 trillion and will only continue to grow, and it can never not grow, because the moment you accept the reality of what I just said, the whole system crashes.
This is like playing football. The umpire saying, well, it's a bit boring. I'm going to join. I'm going to score some goals, but I'll still reserve the right to blow the whistle, give the red card, give the yellow card. Who's going to win that game? So the bank regulators will compete against
That's
the banks.
a good analogy.
CBDC is just a current account at...
Look, there he goes again. Look, I paused it specifically for this now. See that hand symbol he's doing? The people that rule over him that he's complaining about right now brainwashed him to do that symbol. So you see, if you are under subconscious mental control, how do you fight that system, right? Think about it. Think about it. He's trying to fight against the banks and what he's talking about and Epstein and the whole digital ID thing, right? Yet he can't fight against the digital ID because he's still persisting the very thing that's persisting the digital ID through his subconscious hand gestures that he is not even actually probably most likely aware that he's even doing. It's just something he's doing because the terminology. Notice how, here, I'll give you a very clear thing, right? Let's rewind a second. Listen to what he's saying when he starts to make the hand symbol. What he is saying is highly tied to the hand symbol. So when you say certain things out your mouth, your hands are automatically wanting to do certain symbolism because the symbolism is tied into the language manipulation, because letters are symbols. So every letter of the alphabet that you use to create words, to create sentences, to formulate paragraphs, to have an opinion about anything, was formulated from symbols first. All symbols are neutral that have been now corrupted through this false dualistic mentality to place positive or negative on every symbol, and that's not possible because all symbols are neutral. It is the creator's intent of the symbol that is what creates the positive or negative. The symbols themselves are not positive or negative. They can only be positive and negative with an observer creator producing that intent. Do you see what I'm saying? I know it's a little complicated. I apologize. What I'm speaking about is high level information that took me over a decade to accumulate, to even piece together, to even figure out, to even begin to start to describe how manipulated language is. And this is an 8.5-minute video I'm watching. I logistically could talk forever about this subject and never shut up and never stop coming up with examples. It's all of duality. You see how much evidence I have to use.
Right, to blow the whistle, give the red card, give the yellow card. Who's going to win that game?
Watch his hand.
So the bank regulators will compete against the banks, because CBDC is just a current account at the central bank.
A current account at the central bank. So notice how the hand symbol is in line with speaking about the very thing that is actually enslaving everybody. So notice how the hand symbol is tied to the thing that's enslaving you. And see, because he's producing the hand symbol, even though he's speaking out against the central banks, he's producing the hand symbol that is in line with persisting that enslavement of the banks. And this goes a lot. This is not just for like just the bank's subject, right? I can use this same symbol for any subject that you want to talk about. And I can show you how this symbol is tied to the parts in that subject and the languaging of the manipulation in that subject, and how those are tied together and are used to psychologically manipulate the population. Because most people do not even comprehend what language is. You are casting spells of creation, bro. You are manifesting reality. And the system needs you to manifest duality. It does not want you to comprehend that you're made of 3 energies. You are made of neutral, positive, and negative. You would not know what happiness is without sadness. And you wouldn't be able to balance positive and negative without neutral. And duality is without neutral. So you notice how we live in extreme positive and negatives of everything, because it lacks the ability to balance itself, because duality is made of 2 energies, not 3.
That's what's happening. Of course, this conflict of interest explains what the central banks have been doing. They've been taking anti-bank policies for many decades. Already in 2002, I warned about how the central banks were creating these asset bubbles, banking crises, recessions. And of course, that has continued ever since, unabated. We've got regulatory moral hazard. The more crises they create, the more powers we give them. Each time they demand,
that is actually very factual true. I don't even have to correct him at all. Exactly what he said. The system creates more problems, and as it creates more problems, the society gives more of their power, willpower, free will to that system to control you. The word government means to control mind. Now critically think, how long has governments existed? Now think about how old you are. Now think about how that it is impossible for you to escape the level of mind control I am talking about, because it's older than governments. It's older than the word governments. What I'm talking about when it comes to mind control is older than the English language. Think about it.
because we didn't have enough powers, which is not actually true, and should have been stopped earlier. So can we trust the central banks to give them yet more power? I think the answer should be a resounding no. The high inflation that started in 21 was created by the central banks. No matter what they tell you about wars, the economics is very clear. I could forecast it quite successfully from May 2020 onwards, that 18 months later we'll get significant inflation, because the money creation was just massive, off the charts. Then the central banks imposed a fake pandemic. You know that story. And we know that people like Jeffrey Epstein, is now public record, were involved as early as 2017 in setting up the scheme of this great pandemic for some investors to make a fortune, such as Bill Gates. And then we can also make money injecting people with stuff and solve the problem, as Epstein and Bill Gates discussed, matter of public record, of how to get rid of the poor people. And of course, it was used at the same time to push digital ID.
Yeah, which has not
Now,
gone over really well, actually.
You know, what they're giving us is not
I mean, it's almost a decade later. Like, it's about to be like 6.5 years later, and they still don't have digital ID. Because, obviously, hey, I appreciate the like too, Mike. They comprehend I exist. I will not longer allow the lies to persist. I don't care how crazy I look. You see what I'm saying? I know what I'm saying is true. I've done too many experiments. If I really needed to, I could write out a whole thesis. I could show how I set up every experiment. I can write it all down and prove all that shit. But it would be useless because none of that's gonna matter if the individual that's listening to me doesn't go out and have their own experience and do their own research and do their own experiments. That's the only way you can know what I know, is to do it on your own because you chose to do it. I can't force you to. I can't explain it actually in a way that can get you to conceptualize it and know it like I know it. Like, there's nothing I can say to get you, the population, to know what I know. Only me explaining it and then you going and attempting to see if it's real or not is the only way. And you have to comprehend, I will straight out tell you to go do experiments on yourself. Please go test language manipulation. Please go test the theory that I'm talking about, how duality is a false mental prison where you must deny a third of your own being to exist in it, and therefore you're robbing yourself of the wholeness that should be required for experience, and that's being able to balance positive and negative properly. Instead, currently everyone thinks there's a god and a devil running around fighting each other in a never-ending fucking war, and none of them can comprehend that you need positive just as much as you need negative. And so you need the devil just as much as you need God, because you wouldn't know how to be happy, God, if you didn't know how to be sad, devil. Do you see what I'm saying? And you gotta think, God and devil are the extremes of happiness and sadness. But there is no reason to go beyond happiness or sadness for anything. Comprehend, if you have neutral, like I am saying, one can become neutral. You can see why you need to be happy sometimes and why some moments you're going to be sad. And that both of those states are okay and they will always pass. They will never stay there forever. Like, you can never be happy forever all the time. And you'll never be sad forever all the time. Those things will just not ever happen. So you need to learn how to balance knowing how to be happy when to be happy and knowing how to be sad when to be sad. Like, if I'm sad and depressed, you're not going to fucking see me on the screen. I'm going to be laying in my bed, covered up in blankets, sleeping, or just laying there, logistically thinking and doing nothing when I'm sad. That's it. And I do that. And when I know I don't need to be sad no more, I stop doing that and I go back to being fucking happy and I come back to the fucking screen. You see what I'm saying?
Only option. We can have prosperity. Their goal is zero growth, negative growth. Germany now, third year of recession, first time since 1933. But actually, we could have high growth everywhere in the world and prosperity for all. How do you do that? 200 years of strong economic growth in Germany were due to many, many small banks, local money creation, money lent to small firms. They're the main employer. 60%, 70% of employment is with SMEs. That's how you...
My video is going to be like a 30-minute video, and I'm watching a video that's 8.5 minutes long.
You spread the prosperity. These hidden champions in Germany, where Germany really sticks out, is small firms that are global market leaders. Yes. Now, how's that possible? Because Germany has the largest number of banks in Europe. Well, we should use past tense, had the largest number of banks. And they were mostly small local banks. That is the way to generate prosperity. But the central planners don't like that, and they've been killing banks. So ECB policies have been very successful.
Well, yes, you can see that they've been killing banks for a while, bro. They're trying to get everything into a one world order. See, you were born in to the new world order. And the new world order was the central banks and the IMF and the fucking WHO and like all these other alphabet letter bullshit crap, right? That's the New World Order. You were born into it. That New World Order is attempting to obtain the control of all the money supply so it can create the One World Order. It cannot create the One World Order until it has full control over the whole entire money supply. See, Iran does not have a central bank, or what would be considered to be a central bank. You see what I mean? And so therefore the central banks cannot control that section of money. Hence why Israel and the United States is going to war with Iran, just like they did with just like the United States did with Iraq, lied about weapons of mass destruction so we could blow that whole fucking place up and take it over. Think about it.
The ECB, a very young central bank, already 6,000 banks have disappeared in Europe, and surprise, surprise, it's not Goldman Sachs that has disappeared.
Nope.
So last chance saloon, and I'm wrapping up here. The overarching trend of the 20th century was the concentration of power in the hands of fewer and fewer people. Lord Acton, quite wisely, he was really an observer of politics for many decades, concluded power corrupts. That's the reality. That's human nature. If you give people power, and too much power, it will lead to bad results. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely.
So we have to stop the further spread.
That's why I don't judge. I don't want no one's power. I don't want to control anyone else. I just want everyone to know the truth as I know the truth, because that's the only thing I want to know is the truth that goes for everyone. It's the only thing I live for. Everything else was stolen away from me and horrifically traumatized away from me. And so therefore, the only thing I have left is to seek the truth that must be for everyone and then talk about it.
Of digital ID and the introduction of CBDCs. Already Europe is being deindustrialized, economically destroyed. We can't give these central planners that have delivered this yet more powers. Instead, we need to decentralize, break up the concentrated power. Oppose digital ID. We are sovereign individuals. We don't need to prove our identity. If somebody wants to check identity, well, that's their problem. We need to oppose digital asset registers and tokenization of our assets and of nature. And we need, most of all, of course, to oppose CBDCs. A decentralized monetary system is the future. Many small local banks.
That's why you should invest in a Bitcoin and learn how to hold it yourself and not be on any exchanges, and you want to own your own keys. You do not want someone else to own your keys. It's like, I'll give you an example. I have a wallet on my computer. I own the keys to that. I am the only one in the world that knows those words for that password. That's it. It's a 12-word password. No one else knows those words. And then the backup password is random 12 words. Also, no one else knows. The only way I can lose the money on that wallet is if all of electricity dies and we go back to the Stone Age.
Banks in a decentralized fashion implementing subsidiarity, that is proven to be very...
Bitcoin is decentralized. There is no government that owns it or controls it or can do anything or change it or none of that.
Successful. That's how, excuse me, that's how China became an economic superpower within one generation. They moved from one bank in the Soviet system, central planners loved it, to 5,000 banks with 30 loan offices in 35 branches. That's more than 5 million people checking millions and millions of small firm loan applications for productive business investment.
Right.
It's easier to find people to govern themselves than people fit to govern others, because those who are currently governing us, they're not fit to do so. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Subscribe to One India and never miss an update. Download the One India app now.
Dude, they have an app, bro? That's crazy. This guy is fucking dope. R. Werner. I don't know who he is, actually. I don't know his first name. It doesn't tell me anywhere. Oh, there it is. Professor Dr. Richard Werner. So this motherfucker is a professor and a doctor. And he was saying some good things. I mean, comprehend, the things I called him out on are things that most of the population doesn't even know about and is highly unaware. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm calling it out. Everyone I react to is an example I can use to show how language has been manipulated, and also how duality is a false mental reality that is not real, because it requires you to deny a third of yourself in order to exist in it. And I'm out of here with that one. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Make sure you like, subscribe, and all the other mess, blah, blah, blah. And here's a video somewhere on the screen if you want to see that later. Okay? All right. Bye.